Hello everyone and welcome to Victoria's Cantina. Today we're having a look at the Neca Batman Begins 7-inch Batman action figure. This is a Toys R Us exclusive and a very interesting release from Neca. It came out last November or so, and I finally found one at one of my local Toys R Us stores. And they also had their exclusive 7-inch Arkham City Harley Quinn. As you may recall, we previously took a look at Neca's other 7-inch Batman figures, like the Adam West Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman, the Heath Ledger Joker, and the Christopher Reeve Superman, which isn't a Batman character obviously, but it's a DC character from a film. And I'm glad that they are continuing that line, although quality control in that line wasn't that great and I had some issues. So hopefully with Batman here, we're not going to see any issues like that. The packaging setup is the same as we saw with those previous figures. It's basically a rectangle. It has a theme to the packaging. For Batman Begins, this is what most of the packaging looked like back in 2005. You can see the figure in there. You can see some of his accessories. On the side, we have some artwork of the figure. That actually might be the quarter scale figure there. Opposite side shows another look at the figure. And at the back, once again, I think this is the quarter scale figure there. It just looks too good to be the 7-inch scale figure. But we get some information. As a child, Bruce Wayne watched his parents' murder in the streets of Gotham City. After searching the world for answers to injustice, he returned to the city he loved to restore it to its grandeur. The task is larger than a mere man can accomplish, so Wayne assumes the guise of Batman to battle the forces that are destroying Gotham's soul. And it tells you what it includes right there. So I'm glad we get a few things with this figure, because that doesn't always happen. Here at the top, little peek inside, and there's the bottom. So, okay, I'm going to go and spend a few minutes getting Batman out of the packaging. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at Batman Begins Batman. All right, you guys, now here is Batman out of the packaging. And I gotta say, this from a distance at least looks really good. I really like the drape of his cape. Ooh, that rhymed. Yeah, the cape drapes very nicely around his body, and that's pretty cool because that really wasn't the case with the Michael Keaton Batman, or even the Adam West Batman. This seems to be like a different kind of material from those. It's a little bit softer. I kind of feel like it has a little bit more polyester in it, or more of a synthetic sort of material. I do notice that it collects dust a little bit more than those other ones did, but if that comes at the expense of having such a nice drape, then I'm okay with it. The physique and silhouette of the figure looks good. He is a little bit hunched over at the neck, which is accurate to the film, so that's cool. And from all angles, with his cape splayed out like that, he just looks really good. I'm really happy with the aesthetic here. Now, Neca did see fit to give him quite a few accessories, which is quite nice. And he is articulated, so we'll see how that works out in just a bit. But first, here's a close-up of the Caped Crusader. And this is kind of where I have my biggest issue with the figure, is that the face just looks weird. Especially those eyes. Those eyes are just very strange. They kind of look red, like he's got pink eye or something in both eyes. And the pupils look too small. Like, why are they that small? It's just kind of a freakish sort of demonic look. I mean, he almost looks possessed. This kind of looks like when he was kind of tripping after he had those weaponized hallucinogens get into his system, thanks to the Scarecrow. So yeah, I mean, it looks good on the quarter scale figure, but when they shrunk it down, they just didn't really do that great of a job on the paint. The skin looks pretty good, like the mouth has some nice texture and detail to it, but the paint isn't perfect. Like there's a little bit of bleeding from the black onto the skin in some areas. It's not too bad overall, but it's imperfect. The eyes are the biggest issue I have. Again, when you're looking at him from a distance, he looks good. I mean, you can't really see that. But once you get him up close, he just looks a little bit scary. So, yeah, not quite sure what happened there. Obviously, just an issue with paint. They could make this look fantastic if they wanted to. All they'd have to do, really, is repaint it. And I'm sure any good customizer could do a much better job repainting this. But I mean, the shape of the head, the sculpt of it is there. It's totally there, and it actually looks really, really nice. It's got a nice bit of a sheen to it. It's not too obvious. It looks pretty movie accurate in my view. But yeah, I mean, it's just mostly that facial and eye paint that I have an issue with. Other than that, the rest of the armor looks really, really good. You can see where the cape kind of is situated below his cowl. And it's got these two little tabs right there that are kind of meant to look like they're securing the cape. Obviously, it's just placed underneath the cowl before they put the head on there. But the armor itself looks really good. I really like the color of the costume. It's a nice kind of matte black, but a little bit glossy too. Like I said, it does look very accurate to the film, so that's probably this figure's best feature, is that the armor and the costume just looks very film accurate. And I dig it. You get your big bat logo there. That was a feature of this specific Batman Begins costume that he had at the very beginning of The Dark Knight for a little while. The gauntlets right here are pretty shiny, which is cool. I like the contrast in black. And you can see that the blades are a little bit warped on this one, whereas on the other arm they're nice and straight. So obviously just, one of those things that happens sometimes. The belt is a nice deep bronze copper kind of color, and it picks up the light pretty nicely. I like how they worked in these other colors in there, like silver and black. I think that looks good. The arms are pretty musculared out. He was a pretty buff looking Batman, especially in Batman Begins. The back is very nicely detailed. His rear end is shapely. And the legs look really good too. I really like what they did here with the legs. Nice and proportionate. The boots are also glossy like the gauntlets, so nice how they match that right there. I really do like how that offsets from the more matte look of the armor. But it looks really good. And nice texture there on the boots too. Really like how this worked out. Even the soles of the shoes look really nice. So overall, aesthetically speaking, it looks great. And it's just that face paint. It should have been better. Now in terms of articulation, there is a ball joint sort of thing here at the head. You don't really get any movement out of it, especially because it's clasping down on his cape. So, that kind of hinders movement there, which is okay. In the film, he didn't move his head, so that makes sense. He has ball joints here at the shoulders. You can see the joint a little bit right there, but you don't really get any movement. I mean, you can swivel it back and forth. That works okay. But moving it outward, you don't really get anything. I mean, it's like barely even moves. And it's the same on both arms. It's just one of those things where, it's a little too restrictive. And I'm kind of one of those people that has had bad luck with Neca figures, and I don't want it to break. If I pull it out too much, I'm afraid it's just going to snap off, and then I'm going to have a broken figure. So that's not good either. So I'm just going to kind of leave it. I wish it moved more, but unfortunately it just doesn't. You do get bends and swivels at both of the elbows, so that works pretty well. Same with the wrists. You get bends forward and back, and you can spin it around. Opposite hand does the exact same thing. Here at the upper torso, you get a ball joint, but also it's very tight. It doesn't really move a whole lot. I mean, nothing really all that meaningful. Now at the hips, surprisingly, he can do a full split. So it's like, why can he do that, but he can't move his shoulders out like that? I don't get that. I mean, it's pretty rare that, these Neca DC figures can even do that at the hips. So very interesting. Forward is kind of a different story. They don't go forward all that much. Here at the knees, you get bends and rotations, so you can move those around, and you just get very slight bends here at the ankles. I mean, literally, this is all I'm getting out of it. I mean, it's kind of like, why is it even there to begin with? It would have been nice if it had a rocker swivel, but unfortunately, that was not meant to be. So Batman does come with some interchangeable hands. I have already taken the liberty and swapped one of them out. He has two-fisted hands from the factory. And surprisingly, they're actually not too hard to swap out. This is sometimes an issue with different brands where the hands are just hard to remove. In this case, it's not too bad. For weapons, you get a grapnel gun, and it's a very nice looking grapnel gun. It's nothing too fancy, but it looks screen accurate, and the colors look nice. A little bit metallic, so I like that. You also get two Batarangs, and I don't know why these are sticking to my fingers. I think it's because the tape that was holding them down left some residue on them, so they're just kind of sticking to me now. But you get a nice, pretty good sized Batarang there, and then you get a really tiny one for reasons unknown. I mean, it makes sense that he would have had them in different sizes, but this is just really tiny, and could probably get lost, there it goes, pretty easily. You also get this piece right here, which I initially thought was that sort of tool he uses at the beginning of The Dark Knight when he's cutting through the Scarecrow's getaway van, but that's not what it is. It actually clasps to his belt. So what you're going to do is kind of just follow these little indentations there on this little clip and just kind of line them up right here on this part of the belt. And you can see that they're kind of cut out to fit one another, so you just kind of slide it in like that. You do got to apply a little bit of pressure, but once you get it in, it fits on there pretty nicely. And then you're going to take your grapnel gun and just, kind of line it up as well until you get it secured in place like that. Now, it's not ideal. If you knock it, it's going to fall off. I mean, you hit it hard enough, but it works. I mean, it's a nice touch. I mean, they certainly didn't need to include that with this figure, but I'm really glad that they did because extras are always a plus. Okay, and now here's a comparison. I went through the Victoria's Cantina archives and I found my Mattel Movie Masters Batman Begins Batman from 2008, 2009. And you can see him standing there on the right. He's a 6-inch scale figure, whereas the NECA, of course, is a 7-inch scale figure. And this just gives you a little comparison here of what both of these figures are like one to the other. One's obviously a mass-produced figure. The other one's a little bit more limited, being a Toys R Us exclusive and supposedly being a higher quality figure. That's debatable, but it is nice to see them side by side. And I did kind of fold the NECA version's cape to kind of look like the Movie Masters version there. Here's a comparison of Batman along with the NECA 7-inch scale Heath Ledger Joker figure. And interestingly, Joker's a little bit taller, so I don't think they're completely into scale because in the film, Batman, as I recall, was a little bit taller. Now, of course, they didn't ever encounter one another with Batman wearing that costume. He was already sporting his Dark Knight outfit by then. But it is interesting. I kind of feel like this Joker figure is just a little bit too tall. Nonetheless, they do look pretty nice next to each other. And then I didn't want to roll out all of my NECA 7-inch DC Film Universe figures, but I did want to at least compare the Christian Bale Batman next to the Michael Keaton Batman. Even though I feel that Christian Bale is the best Batman, Michael Keaton is Batman. That's the Batman I associate with my childhood and have the most nostalgia for, so, Michael Keaton all the way. But anyway, looking at the figure side by side, the Batman Begins version's a little bit taller, just a smidgen, and I feel like he maybe has a little bit better proportions overall. I still really like this Michael Keaton version, and as I mentioned earlier, the capes are of a different material. I kind of feel like the Michael Keaton one has a cheaper looking sort of cape. It just doesn't look all that great, whereas, of course, the Christian Bale one here has a much nicer drape to it, and, just feels a lot softer and of better quality. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. This is the NECA Batman Begins 7-inch scale Toys R Us exclusive Batman figure. Overall, I think that NECA did a pretty good job with it. There's definitely a big issue there with the face. The paint just is not quite up to snuff, especially those eyes. I don't really like the red sort of demonic look that they have. That's the biggest issue I have. Other than that, it really is a solid figure aesthetically speaking. The rest of the figure looks fantastic. The whole sculpt is great. Even that head sculpt is great. The armor looks fantastic. And the cape is really nice. I really like the material they went with. It has a very nice drape and it feels to be a good quality, so I like that. I don't like the articulation a whole lot. The joints that do work well, such as the hips, no problems there, knees work well, but those shoulders are just ridiculously restricted. And the same goes for those ankles. Why even place joints there if you can't get any movement out of them? So the figure is a little bit of a mixed bag. I'm kind of leaning toward liking it more than disliking it, mostly because this is really the only 7-inch scale Christian Bale Batman figure I can get from Batman Begins. Not even Mayfax or Figuarts have a Batman Begins Batman in the 6-inch scale. So if you're a fan of that look, of that costume, of that movie, then, this is the one you need to add to your collection because it's not perfect. It does have some pretty big flaws, but right now it's our only option. And, for $20, I'm pretty happy with it. Could it have been better? Absolutely. But I do like it on the whole. And, if you're a Batman fan or a fan of the Christian Bale Batman Begins Batman, then, I think you should add it to your collection. Alright, my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If so, do give us a like, do subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And as always, I want to thank you for tuning in to Victoria's Cantina. Until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.